The cold air of the room pressed against her skin like knives, the chains around her wrists biting deep with every small movement she made. The alien woman sat in the corner, her back against the damp stone wall, her eyes wide with fear. For as long as she could remember, humans were spoken about as dangerous creatures, cruel, ruthless. They were the ones who took what they wanted and left behind only pain. And now one of them stood at the doorway looking at her. Her breathing quickened. She pulled her knees close to her chest, trembling as though the act might make her disappear. The metal collar around her neck rattled softly, the sound echoing through the empty chamber. Her heart pounded so hard she thought the human could hear it. He stepped forward slowly, quietly. His boots scraped against the rough floor, the sound sending a chill up her spine. She expected the blow to come, the harsh hand, the raised weapon, the cruel laughter that always followed. That was how it always was. Her body tensed, preparing for pain. But the pain did not come. The human stopped just a few steps away, his face calm, his eyes strangely gentle. He did not shout. He did not mock. Instead, he crouched down, lowering himself so he would not tower over her. His hand reached to his side and then extended forward. In it, he held a small container of water. She stared at it with confusion. Water? Why would he offer that? Her lips were dry. Her throat burned with thirst, but she dared not move. It could be a trick. She had seen tricks before. Food offered, then snatched away. A hand extended, then turned into a fist. Her body shook harder. The human spoke, his voice low, not the sharp tone she expected. Drink, he said simply, almost softly. The alien woman pressed herself tighter into the corner, shaking her head quickly. Her mind screamed at her, don't trust him. Don't move, don't fall into the trap. Yet her body betrayed her with every glance toward that water. He did not move closer. He did not force her. He simply placed the container on the floor between them and slid it gently toward her. Then he leaned back, sitting cross-legged on the cold ground as though he had no intention of rushing her. Silence filled the room, broken only by the faint drip of water from somewhere above. She waited, her eyes locked on him, ready for the sudden change, the cruel strike. But minutes passed and nothing happened. He just sat there, watching her with steady eyes, not anger, not threat, only patience. Her throat burned worse now, every swallow painful. She hated her weakness. She hated the way her body betrayed her need. Slowly shaking, she stretched one chained hand forward. Her claws brushed the edge of the container. Still, the human did not move. She snatched it back quickly, like a cornered animal, expecting his hand to lash out. But again, nothing. Finally, with trembling hands, she lifted the water to her lips. The first drop hit her tongue, and she froze, waiting for poison, waiting for fire. But it was only water. Pure, cool, clean water. Her body shook as she drank greedily, tears springing into her eyes. She almost forgot he was there until she lowered the container and saw him still watching. Her breath caught. She clutched the cup tight against her chest, ready to defend it if he tried to take it away. But the human simply nodded. Good, he whispered. Her heart twisted with confusion. Nothing about this made sense. Why did he not strike her? Why did he not laugh at her weakness? Why did he not chain her tighter when he had the chance? She pressed her back harder into the wall, eyes darting around the room, searching for the trap she could not see. The human shifted slightly, and her body tensed again, but all he did was pull something from a bag at his side. A small bundle of cloth. He unfolded it slowly, showing her it was only bread, simple and rough. He broke it in half, placed one piece on the ground, and slid it toward her the same way he had done with the water. Her stomach growled, loud and desperate, betraying her again. She clenched her fists, angry at her own weakness, terrified of his power over her. But the bread smell reached her nose, warm and real. She shook her head. Why? She whispered, her voice hoarse, her language broken, but the question clear. The human looked at her for a long moment. Then he said words she had never heard before. Words that broke the chains of silence inside her heart. Because you deserve better. Her breath stopped. Her world twisted. For the first time, she wondered if everything she had been told about humans was a lie, but fear still clung to her like chains. Was this kindness real, or was it only the beginning of something worse? The chains still rattled softly whenever she shifted. Though the human had given her water, though he had slid bread toward her without demand, the alien woman's body remained tense, coiled like a frightened animal. She had lived too long in fear to let it go so easily. She stared at the bread piece lying between them on the cold stone floor. Her hunger clawed at her stomach. Every bite of her life had always been a struggle. Every scrap of food taken with pain or shame. Now this human had given her something without striking her first. Without demanding something back, her hands trembled. What if it was poisoned? What if it was some kind of test, and once she reached for it, he would grab her arm and drag her down? The human, sitting quietly across from her, seemed to sense her hesitation. He did not move closer, did not push the bread at her. Instead, he broke his own piece in half and lifted it to his mouth. Slowly, calmly, he ate in front of her, chewing, swallowing, showing her it was safe. Her eyes widened. Her throat tightened with both longing and confusion. He didn't flinch at the taste. He didn't fall over in pain. It was real food. Her body made the choice before her mind did. Her chained hand stretched out, shaky but determined. She snatched the bread and pulled it back to her chest like someone might steal it away. For a moment she only held it, staring at the rough surface. The smell filled her nose, warm and bitter. Finally, she took a small bite. The bread was dry, coarse, but to her it felt like the richest meal in the galaxy. She ate faster, unable to stop herself. Crumbs fell down her chin. Tears rolled down her cheeks without her permission. The human said nothing. He only watched her quietly, his eyes steady, almost kind. She hated those eyes. No, she feared them. They saw too much. They saw her weakness, her hunger, her tears. She turned her head away, ashamed, wiping her mouth with the back of her chained hand. Still, he did not laugh. Still, he did not mock her. Instead, the human spoke again, his voice low and careful, as though he was afraid that raising it too high might break her. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. Her entire body stiffened. The words sounded strange in her ears, soft and gentle, not sharp and cruel. Her people never said such words. Fear was survival. Fear was normal. But this human, he spoke as if fear was something wrong, something she should not carry. Her lips trembled. She wanted to ask him why. Why was he doing this? Why was he not like the others? But her voice failed her. She could only stare, trapped between terror and a strange warmth she could not understand. The human reached into his bag again. This time she flinched hard, dragging herself back against the wall, chains clattering loudly. Her heart raced. Maybe now the real pain would begin, but once more he surprised her. He pulled out nothing more than a folded cloth, clean and simple. He leaned forward slowly, so slowly she could see every movement. He placed the cloth on the ground and pushed it toward her, stopping just out of reach. Her eyes narrowed. "A trap, a trick?" He lifted his own hands away, showing her they were empty. Then he nodded at the cloth and said, "For your face." Her claws clenched. Her face. She lifted her hand to her cheek and felt the tears still wet there. The crumbs from the bread, the dirt from the walls. Shame burned through her. She was filthy, broken. Her chest tightened painfully as she looked at the cloth. Something inside her screamed not to trust it, not to take anything from him. But another voice, quieter, deeper, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was not a trap. Slowly, carefully, she leaned forward, stretching her chained hand. She pulled the cloth toward herself. The human did not move. He simply sat there waiting. She pressed the cloth against her face. It was soft, far softer than she had expected. She wiped her cheeks, her lips, her forehead. For a moment she felt almost human, almost clean. Her breathing slowed. Her shoulders dropped slightly. For the first time in years she felt something she could not name. Trust. But only a drop of it. Only enough to scare her. She lowered the cloth and looked at him. Really looked at him. His hair was dark, his face tired but calm. His hands were rough, like someone who worked hard every day, but they were steady, not cruel. "Why?" she whispered again, her voice breaking. The human met her eyes. He did not look away. "Because no one deserves to live in chains," he said. Her heart pounded wildly. The words cut through her chest like a blade, but it was not pain. It was something else, something terrifying. Hope. She hated it. She feared it, because hope always ended in betrayal. And yet, as she clutched the cloth to her chest, she could not stop the small spark from lighting deep inside her heart. She thought humans were only monsters. But this one was different. And that difference frightened her more than any chain ever could. The alien woman sat with her back pressed against the cold wall, the cloth clutched tightly in her chained hands. She had drunk the water. She had eaten the bread. and for a brief moment her heart had felt something she had not known in a long time: warmth. Yet the heavy chains around her wrists and neck reminded her of what she really was: a prisoner, a thing, a shadow of life. The human still sat near her, calm and quiet, as though he had no fear of her claws, no disgust for her tears. That silence weighed on her. Why wasn't he leaving? Why wasn't he doing what all others did? Hurt her, mock her, or sell her away? Her chains rattled again when she shifted. The sound made her flinch, as though the iron itself mocked her. She hated it. She hated the reminder that she was never free, never in control. The human's eyes fell on the iron cuffs around her wrists. His jaw tightened. Slowly he reached to his side and pulled something from his belt. A small tool, old but sharp. Her body stiffened instantly. Panic rose like fire in her chest. This is it, she thought. Now he will cut me. Now the mask of kindness will fall away. She tried to pull herself back, pressing so hard into the wall that her shoulders ached. The chains clattered as she yanked at them, a useless struggle she had repeated too many times. "No," she hissed, voice rough, her throat burning. The human froze, his hands lifted slightly to show her he meant no harm. His voice came low, steady. "Not to hurt you," he said. He tapped the tool gently against one cuff, making a soft clink sound. "To free you," her breath stopped. "Free?" The word felt like poison, too sweet, too dangerous. No one had ever said such a thing to her. Not in all her years. Her eyes narrowed. It must be a lie, she told herself. It must be another trick. Freedom is not for me. Freedom is a dream they dangle in front of you before they tighten the chain even more. And yet, his eyes did not hold cruelty. His voice did not carry mockery. He did not rush her. He waited. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint sound of the storm outside. Her heart pounded as she stared at the tool, then at him. Something deep inside whispered again, that small voice that had been growing since the water, since the bread, since the cloth. What if it's true? What if this time is different? Shaking, she stretched her wrist forward, iron cuff gleaming under the dim light. Her body screamed at her to stop, but her hand kept moving. The human leaned forward slowly, carefully. He placed the tool at the lock of her cuff. His hands were rough but steady, his movements careful, as though he was afraid of hurting her. The metal groaned under the pressure. She winced, closing her eyes, waiting for the sudden sting of betrayal. Instead, a sharp click filled the air. The cuff slid loose. Her wrist dropped free, heavy, red and bruised from years of chains. She stared at it wide-eyed, unable to believe what she saw. The iron lay on the floor, no longer biting her flesh. Her breath came fast, sharp, unsteady. The human gave her space, pulling his hands back, showing her he had no intention of forcing the other wrist. "See," he said softly. "No more chains." Tears blurred her vision. She hated them, hated the weakness, but they came anyway. She lifted her free wrist to her face, touching her own skin as though she had never seen it before. Could this be real? Could she truly be free of even one shackle? The human waited, patient as ever, until she finally raised her second wrist. Her hand shook so badly the chain rattled like a dying bell. She could not stop it. He leaned in again, working at the lock. This time she did not close her eyes. She watched him, every movement, every line of his face, the sweat on his brow, the focus in his eyes. He worked not like a master over a prisoner, but like a man desperate to undo an injustice. Another click. The second cuff fell to the floor. Her arms were free. She pulled them close, wrapping them around herself, shaking violently. The collar around her neck still remained, heavy and cruel. But even so, this was more freedom than she had ever known. Her voice cracked when she spoke. Why you do this?" The human looked at her, his eyes filled with something she had no name for. Not pity, not desire, something else. "Because no one should live like this," he said. The words cut through her like fire, searing but bright. Her claws dug into her arms. She wanted to believe. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run, but her body moved before her mind. She leaned forward just slightly, her chains gone, her arms trembling. For the first time, she did not recoil from him. For the first time, she let herself imagine that he might be telling the truth. And in that moment, something inside her broke, not in pain, but in release. Not all chains were made of iron. Some were made of fear. And for the first time, she felt one of those chains crack. The sound of the broken cuff still echoed in her ears. The alien woman sat frozen, both wrists bare, the weight of iron gone, but the weight of fear still heavy on her chest. She rubbed at the red bruises on her skin, half expecting the chains to reappear at any moment. Freedom felt strange, almost unreal, like a dream that could vanish if she blinked too hard. The human did not move closer. He gave her space, sitting a few steps away with his bag beside him. His calmness was unsettling. Why was he not rushing to control her now that she was unchained? Why did he not lock her again before she tried to escape? Every part of her mind screamed this had to be a trick, and yet his steady eyes told a different story. Her stomach growled suddenly, loud and raw. She flinched in shame, pressing her arms against her body. Hunger had been her master for too long. It exposed her weakness, her need. The human reached into his bag again. She stiffened, ready for the sharp blade, ready for the harsh strike. But what he pulled out was only food. Not scraps, not spoiled leftovers, but a bundle wrapped carefully in cloth. He opened it slowly so she could see. Inside was simple bread, a small piece of dried meat, and a handful of dried fruit. The smell hit her nose and her body trembled with longing. She hated herself for it. She hated how much she wanted it. He tore the bread in half and placed one piece near her. Then he placed a strip of dried meat and a few fruits beside it. He kept the other half for himself. Slowly he began to eat, showing her again that it was safe. Her eyes darted from the food to him, then back again. Suspicion warred with hunger, fear battled with need. Finally her hand moved, slow and cautious. She picked up the bread. Her claws dug into it like she expected it to vanish. She sniffed it, then took a bite. Warmth spread through her chest. It was simple food, nothing rich or sweet, but to her it was life itself. She chewed quickly, swallowing before she even tasted. The human did not laugh. He did not stop her. He only ate quietly, letting her devour her share. When she finished, she licked the crumbs from her fingers, shame burning her cheeks. She pulled her knees up again, hiding her face, not wanting him to see her like this. But then something strange happened. The human slid the last piece of dried fruit toward her. She froze, her eyes widened. "No, yours," she whispered, her voice rough, broken from disuse. He shook his head. "Yours," he said simply. Her throat tightened painfully. No one had ever done that for her before. No one had ever chosen her hunger over their own. Her claws trembled as she picked up the fruit and popped it into her mouth. The sweetness exploded on her tongue, making her eyes water. Tears rolled down her cheeks again. She tried to hide them, turning her face away, but her shoulders shook. She hated showing weakness, hated letting anyone see how fragile she really was. The human's voice came low, steady, almost gentle. "You don't need to hide," he said. The words struck harder than any weapon. She froze, her breath stuck in her throat. Slowly, she turned back toward him, her eyes wet, her lips trembling. He did not laugh. He did not smirk. His face was calm, his eyes warm. It felt too strange, too dangerous. "Why?" She asked again, the same question she had whispered before. Her voice cracked with it as though she feared the answer. The human leaned back slightly, folding his arms loosely across his chest. He thought for a moment, then said, "Because kindness is stronger than cruelty." Her chest tightened. Kindness. The word felt like a blade and a balm all at once. She wanted to believe it, but her heart fought against it. Too many times she had been tricked. Too many times she had been broken, but her body betrayed her once more. She shifted slightly closer. Not much, only the width of a hand. But it was enough. Enough to show she was beginning to trust. The human noticed, but he did not react. He only continued to eat slowly, giving her space, letting her decide. For the first time in years, she felt a strange calm settle over her. The chains on her wrists were gone. Her stomach was full. And though fear still clung to her, another feeling began to take root inside her chest. Hope. It was dangerous. Terrifying, but it was there. As the storm raged outside, the two of them sat together in the dim chamber, sharing food like equals. One human and one alien, bound not by chains but by something new, something fragile. Trust. But trust was a dangerous thing. And deep in her heart she wondered, could it last? Or would the morning bring betrayal after all? The storm outside grew louder as night fell, wind howling through cracks in the stone walls. Rain hammered against the roof and distant thunder rolled like an angry beast. The alien woman sat near the wall, hugging her knees, her free wrists still strange to her as if they did not belong. Every sound of the storm made her flinch. The human sat across the room, close enough to watch her but far enough to give her space. He had lit a small lamp, its faint glow dancing across the cold chamber. Shadows stretched across the walls, shifting like ghosts. She hated the dark. The dark always brought pain. But tonight, the lamp's light felt different, softer, almost protective. Still, she could not sleep. Her eyes stayed wide, her body tense, waiting for the betrayal she was certain would come. Kindness never lasted. Sooner or later, the mask always broke. She kept her gaze fixed on him, watching his every move. The human leaned back against the wall, his coat draped around his shoulders. After a long silence, he removed it and slowly placed it on the ground near her, pushing it within reach. Her body froze. "A trap, a test?" "Cold," he said simply. His voice was low, almost calm, as though he were stating a simple truth. She stared at the coat, then at him. The storm's chill cut through her thin clothing, making her teeth chatter, but still she hesitated. Her mind screamed warnings: don't touch it. Don't trust it. Don't let yourself fall. Yet her fingers twitched. She reached out carefully and pulled the coat toward her. It was heavy, worn, but warm. The scent of it filled her nose, earth, smoke, and something she couldn't name. She wrapped it tightly around herself, and for the first time in years her body stopped shaking. Her throat ached with unshed tears. She wanted to ask again why he was doing this, but the words refused to come. Instead, she whispered, "You, not like others." The human looked at her, his eyes steady in the lamplight. He shook his head. "No, I'm not like them." Silence settled again. She clutched the coat tighter, torn between fear and the strange warmth blooming in her chest. Minutes stretched into hours. The storm outside grew worse, rattling the wooden door and howling through the cracks. She pressed closer to the wall, her claws digging into the coat. She had lived through storms before, but always alone, always chained. Tonight was different. Her eyes began to droop from exhaustion, but she fought to stay awake. If she slept, she might wake to find the chains back on her wrists. If she slept, she might wake to pain. The human noticed her struggle. Slowly, carefully, he said, "Rest, I'll keep watch." Her breath caught. Rest? He wanted her to close her eyes, to trust him completely. Her heart pounded. She shook her head quickly. "No, if I sleep, you..." She could not finish. The fear clogged her throat. The human did not argue. He only nodded as though he understood. "Then don't sleep. Just close your eyes for a little. I'll be here." His calm voice pressed against her fear like a balm. She lowered her head onto her knees, still clutching the coat, her eyes fluttering shut despite her will. Exhaustion dragged her down, heavier than the chains had ever been. She opened her eyes once more, just enough to see him still there, sitting steady, watching the door, not her. Her chest tightened. Maybe, just maybe, she could let go for a moment. Her breathing slowed, her body sagged. For the first time in years, she drifted into uneasy sleep. When she woke hours later, the lamp was still burning faintly. The storm had softened to a gentle drizzle outside. She shifted slightly, the coat warm around her shoulders. Panic flared. Was he gone? Her eyes darted across the room. He was still there, seated against the wall, his head bowed slightly but his body alert, guarding the door like a silent sentinel. Her breath hitched. He hadn't left. He hadn't hurt her. He had watched over her. Something deep inside her broke again, but not in fear this time. In trust. A small, fragile seed of trust planted in the ashes of her old life. She sat up slowly, her voice trembling. "Why, you protect me?" The human lifted his head, his eyes meeting hers. "Because everyone deserves someone to protect them," he said. Her heart twisted painfully. No one had ever said such words to her. She wanted to deny them, to reject them, but instead tears filled her eyes again. She pressed her face into the coat, hiding her trembling smile. For the first time in her life, she felt something close to safe. And yet, deep in her chest, fear still whispered, what if it doesn't last? What if tomorrow everything breaks? But tonight, with the storm fading and the human keeping watch, she let herself believe in a fragile, dangerous hope, just for one night. The morning came with gray light seeping through the cracks of the old chamber. The storm outside had passed, leaving behind the dripping of water and the heavy smell of wet earth. The alien woman stirred awake, the human's coat still wrapped around her shoulders. For a moment, she forgot the chains were gone. For a moment, she forgot her fear. Then she saw him, still seated near the door, his eyes sharp and alert. He had not slept. He had stayed awake the whole night, keeping watch like he had promised. Her chest tightened. The seed of trust inside her grew just a little stronger. But peace never lasted long. A sharp sound broke the silence, a shout in the distance followed by heavy footsteps. Her blood turned to ice. She knew that sound. She knew the cruel voices carried by the wind. The others had come, her entire body froze. Panic clawed at her throat. They come, she whispered, her voice shaking. Her claws gripped the coat tighter. They find me, you give me back. The human stood quickly, his face turning hard, no longer calm but sharp like steel. He moved to the door, pressing his ear against it. The footsteps grew louder, closer. There were many. He turned back to her. Stay behind me, he said firmly. Her eyes widened in shock. Stay behind him. He would protect her? That made no sense. No one had ever stood in front of her, not once. Her heart pounded as she shook her head. No, they kill you. They take me. The human's jaw tightened. His hand went to his belt, pulling out a small weapon, old but steady in his grip. They'll have to go through me first. The sound of boots slammed against the wooden door, shaking it on its hinges. She cried out, pressing back against the wall, memories of punishment rushing through her mind. The cruel laughter, the chains, the endless nights of suffering. She had always been passed from one hand to another like a broken thing. She looked at the human, this strange man who had given her water, bread, warmth, and freedom. Now he stood tall, his body ready to fight against those who had held her prisoner. Her heart ached with fear, but also with something new, something she didn't understand. The door burst open with a crack, splinters flying across the floor. Several aliens stormed in, their weapons gleaming, their eyes filled with rage. There she is, one of them shouted. Grab her! The master wants her alive. The woman curled into herself, her body trembling violently. She expected the human to step aside, to hand her over. That was how it always happened. That was the truth she had learned her whole life. But the human didn't move. He stepped forward instead, blocking their path, his weapon raised. You're not taking her, he said, his voice steady, strong. The intruders paused, surprised for only a heartbeat. Then they sneered. Move aside, human, one spat. She's worthless property. She belongs to us. She belongs to no one, the human growled. The words struck her harder than the storm, harder than the chains had ever done. No one had ever said such a thing about her. Her breath caught as tears blurred her vision. The aliens lunged forward. The human fired. The blast echoed in the chamber, bright and fierce. One of the attackers fell with a scream. The others roared in anger, rushing him. The woman gasped, clutching the coat tightly. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to vanish. But her eyes stayed locked on him. He fought like a man who had something to protect. Every movement was sharp, every strike full of fire. He was not fighting for himself. He was fighting for her. Her chains might have been broken, but fear still bound her heart. Yet as she watched him stand against them, something inside her shifted. He could have left her. He could have saved himself. But he didn't. He chose to stand in front of her. The battle raged in the small room, the clash of weapons, the cries of anger, the echo of footsteps. She trembled, torn between terror and awe. One attacker managed to push past him, rushing toward her with a cruel grin. Her claws shook as she raised her hands, certain the blow would come. But before it could, the human slammed into the attacker, knocking him to the ground. His voice roared like thunder. Stay away from her. Her heart nearly broke. No one had ever shouted for her safety before. No one had ever chosen her life over their own. The chamber filled with smoke and shouts, the air heavy with the smell of fire. But through it all, one truth burned bright in her mind. This human was not like the others. He was her shield, and in that moment, for the first time, she did not only feel fear. She felt something stronger, something dangerous, something terrifyingly new. She felt hope that maybe, just maybe, she was worth protecting. The chamber reeked of smoke and blood. The intruders lay scattered across the floor, groaning or silent, their weapons broken, their rage silenced. The human stood tall in the middle of the wreckage, his chest heaving, his weapon still in his hand. His arms bore scratches, his clothes torn, but his eyes burned with fire. He had not moved from his place between her and danger. The alien woman sat trembling against the wall, her heart hammering in her chest. She could not believe what she had just seen. He had fought for her, not for money, not for power, not because she belonged to him. He had fought simply to keep her safe. Her claws dug into the coat wrapped around her shoulders. Tears rolled freely down her cheeks. She whispered, half to herself, Why you do this? I am nothing." The human turned to her slowly, lowering his weapon. His expression softened. He walked closer, kneeling down so his eyes met hers. His voice came low, steady, carrying no cruelty, only truth. "You are not nothing," he said. "You are someone, and you deserve a life." Her breath caught. The words felt impossible, unreal. A life? She had never been allowed to imagine such a thing. Her whole existence had been chains, hunger, punishment. She shook her head, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to be free." The human reached forward carefully, his hand hovering near hers but not touching until she allowed it. Slowly, trembling, she let her claws slide into his rough palm. His hand closed gently around hers, warm and steady. "Then I'll teach you," he said softly. Her chest ached with a strange, powerful feeling. Fear still lingered, whispering that this could not last. But hope, fragile, dangerous hope, burned brighter. He helped her to her feet. For the first time, she stood without chains. The weight around her neck still remained, but her wrists were free, her body her own. She swayed on weak legs, but his arm steadied her. They stepped out of the chamber together. The morning light spilled over the horizon, soft and golden after the storm. She blinked against it, her eyes wide. For years she had only known darkness, walls, and cages. Now the sky stretched endless above her. Her breath shuddered. "It's beautiful," she whispered. The human glanced at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Yes, and it's yours too." Tears welled in her eyes again. She turned her face toward him, searching his expression, trying to find the lie. But there was none. He meant it. Every word. They walked slowly down the muddy path, his coat still wrapped around her thin frame. She clung to it, to him, to the warmth that chased away the cold inside her chest. Every step felt like leaving behind a lifetime of pain. But the road ahead was uncertain. She knew the others would not stop searching. She knew danger would follow them. Chains could always return. Fear could always find her again. And yet she no longer felt alone. When they stopped to rest beneath a tree, she sat close beside him, her eyes never leaving his face. Finally, she whispered the words that had haunted her heart since the beginning. "I thought, you hurt me. I thought all humans cruel." He looked at her, his gaze steady. "And now?" She swallowed hard, her claws twisting in the coat. "Now, I don't know what to think. You give me water, food, warmth. You fight for me. You free me. You..." Her voice broke and she pressed her hands to her face, hiding the tears. "You make me feel like I am alive." The human's hand rested gently on her shoulder, grounding her. "That's because you are alive. And as long as I'm here, you'll never be in chains again." Her chest ached, her heart racing wildly. She lowered her hands, meeting his eyes through her tears. For the first time, she let a small, trembling smile escape her lips. She whispered the word she had been too afraid to believe in. "Future." The human nodded. "Yes, a gentle future. Not like your past. One where you choose who you are. One where you are free." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. The world beyond the horizon was terrifying, uncertain, full of shadows. But she was no longer afraid to walk into it. Not with him. The chains of iron were gone. The chains of fear had begun to break, and as the sun rose higher, painting the sky in light, she understood the truth. She had thought the human would hurt her. But instead, he had given her gentle freedom, gentle trust, and a gentle future.